kHz. This is Delhi. Please stand by for our next program.
This is All India Radio. You will now hear comments from the press. The Statesman, in its editorial title, U.S. Acts on Uyghurs' Rights, America has turned the screws yet again on China, this time admittedly on an issue that is actually Beijing's domestic matter. Yet so cruel has been the calculated travesty of human and or religious rights that the repression has eventually stirred the conscience of the Committee of Nations. Repression of Uyghurs recalls the persecution of the predominantly Muslim Rohingyas in Myanmar. Indeed, the persecution of minorities is the thread that links Rakhine to Xinjiang province. It thus comes about that the House of Representatives has overwhelmingly approved a bill that will require the Trump administration to toughen its response to China's crackdown on the Uyghurs, a Muslim minority segment in Xinjiang. It calls on President Trump to impose sanctions for the first time on a member of China's powerful Politburo in the midst of the White House efforts to conclude a trade deal with Beijing. This marks a further souring of relations, as only last week Trump had signed into law a piece of legislation that supports anti-government protesters in Hong Kong despite furious objections from China. Reports suggest that China is considering a ban on what it calls odious US politicians over the criticism against Beijing's policy towards the Uyghurs. The Uyghur Bill, which was passed by 407 to 1 in a democratic-controlled House, requires the President to condemn abuses against Muslims. No less crucially, it calls for the closure of mass detention camps in the northwestern region of Xinjiang. The bill envisages sanctions against senior Chinese officials who it says are responsible. Specifically, it has named the Xinjiang Communist Party Secretary Shen Huangguo, who as a Politburo member holds an important office in China's leadership. Legislative executive procedures would suggest that the bill has to be approved by the Republican-controlled Senate before being sent to President Trump. The White House has yet to say whether the President will sign or veto the bill, which contains a provision allowing the Oval Office to waive sanctions if the President determines that to be in the national interest. Beijing has swiftly called upon the U.S. to stop interfering in China's internal affairs. A statement from China's National Ethnic Affairs Commission said, Xinjiang is China's Xinjiang, echoing another government mantra, Hong Kong is China's Hong Kong. However, rhetorical, the assertion the Communist Party of China is displaying its might in two direly restive parts of the world. The Asian Age, in its editorial titled, In India, Men Are the More Fashionable Sex, says, who takes the lead where talk of fashion idols is concerned? Instantly one tends to turn to Bollywood and female actors. Of course, there is no denying that the film industry is flooded with people being extremely conscious about their looks, their respective fashion styles, from hairstyles to dress and footwear. Name it, and the particular fashion term is instantly linked to a screen personality, their dialogue delivery, their smile. After all, fashion is their profession, their life, their image depends on it. Isn't it so? Interestingly, fashion happens to be a field in Bollywood as well as other arenas. In these arenas, it would be wrong to assume that the lead is taken by the fairer sex. Surprising, is it not? Let us for a moment turn to cricket. Yes, of late, some importance has begun to be given to the beautiful faces in the Indian women's cricket team, but that's about all. Of course, it cannot be missed that the popularity of women's cricket is nowhere near the craze inhabiting the men's format. Here, the Kohli cut has men of all ages and classes swooning over it. Of course, there was a time when a lot of importance was given by men to Amitabh Bachchan's hairstyle and women to the sadhana cut. That is history overtaken by the Kohli cut. Give another thought to the film industry. There is nothing new about men being as fashion conscious as women. This has always been rule of the game. Down the decades, more than half a century ago, hairstyles of male celebrities from Dilip Kumar to Raj Kapoor and Manoj Kumar had their own distinctive look. The new generation is turning grey and has begun to use hair color for fashion and also so as not to look older than their years. Notice the color of politicians' hair, especially the ones who crossed the half-century mark years ago. Interesting, isn't it? Of course, they have the right to color their hair, moustache and or beard should they desire. In contrast to the set color and style of his predecessor, Dr. Manmohan Singh's outfit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's style is far more diverse. This holds for his jackets as well as footwear. Interestingly, the variety in dressing styles of Indian male politicians leaves their Western counterparts far behind. They are mostly confined to being suited, booted. What we observe from the craze about the Kohli cut, Bollywood's fashion standards, and the heroes of the political arena is that it is a vast variety of individuals who take the lead numerically as well as cosmetically. Thanks to the communication boom, they are continuously in the public eye. Except for Bollywood, the fairer sex falls far behind men in this domain, and at least for sure in cricket and politics. This includes most ladies being paid less and or facing negative discrimination. Perhaps it is high time the stereotype about linking fashion to women change. Indeed, it needs to change right away. Those were the comments from the press presented to you by the News Services Division of All India Radio.
This broadcast came to you from the